In the last video, I talked about where current trends could lead by 2026. And for a lot of people, that kind of projection feels heavy. So today, I want to slow things down and look at a different question. What actually changes these trajectories and what doesn't? This is not the headlines, not the noise, but the forces that quietly shape outcomes over time. This channel looks at where America is heading, not through just statistics, but through meaning. So let's start there. What doesn't change anything? Well, first, let's start with the hard truth. Most of what we've been told to do as individuals does pretty much nothing to change the bigger trend. Like my favorite one that I hear all the time, just upskill. You can learn every AI tool on earth, but if every company in your sector is cutting headcount to juice earnings per share, that's not a skills problem. That's a power and incentives problem. People think if I just keep my head down, work harder, don't complain, I'll be safe. But layoffs often hit the highest performers too, right before performance bonuses do. Quiet obedience does not protect you from a spreadsheet. And full disclosure, I was once told to lay off a high performer after they met year end goals. So they got the company to the finish line. They scored a touchdown and then laid him off. Well, I had to lay him off. And let me tell you, anybody with a conscience being told to do something like that, you will feel a type of way. You're told to keep spending, support the economy, while those same companies announce layoffs, stock buybacks, and executive bonuses in the same earnings call. That doesn't change the trajectory, it rewards it. Media headlines switch from soft landing to vibes session, back to everything is fine. None of that stops the boardroom decisions that say we can actually cut 10% of the staff and still hit the stock target. So, what actually moves the needle at company level? What would actually change trajectories? Let's start off by saying something that we all know. You need leverage at the same place decisions are made. Now, how do we get leverage? Collective worker power. It's always worked in the past. When workers act alone, they're replaceable. But when workers move together through unions, organizing committees, or coordinated actions, suddenly layoffs, pay cuts, and schedule changes have a cost. Because you're in control, not them. When they see a bunch of people standing up for themselves all at the same time, that puts their backs up against the wall. And you all aren't just sitting around like ducks waiting to get laid off or a pay cut. Companies can ignore one email, but they can't ignore 500 people ready to walk. or union election that might expose what's really happening. Because public and reputational pressure means a lot to a corporation. Corporations absolutely care about brand risk. When layoffs are paired with record buybacks and CEO pay hikes, and that story hits social media, local news, and customers, some boards back down or at least scale back the cuts. These decisions don't happen in a vacuum, so keep that in mind. They happen in a PR environment. So before I talk about the third thing that you can do, it's totally possible. Okay. Shares equals power. When it comes to the stock, shares equal power. The people and institutions that own lots of stock can influence how a company is run because they vote on key issues. Who sits on the board? How many executives are paid? And whether some policies like massive stock buybacks are acceptable. Pension funds, union funds, and big asset managers like state retirement systems often own big blocks of stock in major employers. That means workers' retirement money is invested in the same companies that may be cutting their jobs. So those investors have a choice. Either go along with layoffs to boost the stock this quarter, or say no. This is bad business and bad for our beneficiaries in the long run. Shareholder and pension fund pressure. Big investors, including pension funds, can push back on pure layoff to pump the stock strategies, especially when it risks long term value. That looks like voting against executive pay packages, against certain board members, or against the most aggressive stock buyback plans. When your retirement money is funding your own job loss, that's an angle workers can and should exploit. So, what does that pushing back actually look like? It's not just, going online and complaining and then sitting back down on the couch, keeping it real. It works like this. If you're in a union or public pension system, your retirement fund likely holds stakes in large employers. Workers and unions can go to pension boards and say, our fund is investing in companies that are laying off our members while rewarding executives. As beneficiaries, we want you to vote against these pay packages and predatory strategies. Now, keep in mind that there's only about maybe 5 to 15 trustees who have a fiduciary duty to consider long-term risk, including reputational, workforce, and operational risk. So, what you want to do is frame layoffs as a long-term risk, not just a moral issue. Instead of saying something like, this is unfair, you can say something like, constant layoffs destroy institutional knowledge, which is the truth. It destroys morale and customer service. That can hurt long-term profitability and therefore hurt the pension's returns. When you translate layoffs into investment risk, You're speaking the language these funds are legally obligated to care about. They're legally obligated to care about because remember, it's all about the money. And that's the reason why you want to frame it as a long term risk. You can post on social media that this company, your company, X company, is cutting 10,000 jobs, buying back billions in stock, and raising CEO pay. Make it easier for large investors to justify a no vote on executives and directors. No fund wants to be seen as blindly supporting something that looks like looting, which it is, because they cut 10,000 jobs and then the CEO's pay goes up. Notice that correlation, as I noted in the last video, how that correlates. We're going to fire thousands of people just so that we can give more money to one person. If you all weren't there, where would the company be? If everybody walked off their jobs, could that CEO keep the company going without all of you people? Without workers? So why are we paying one person that much money as if that's the only person that matters? So let's talk about why this can actually change trajectories. Voting down excessive executive pay when it coincides with big layoffs. Punish directors who prioritize quick stock props over long-term health. Push back on buybacks that come at the expense of investment in workers and the business. Remember the good old days when that's what companies used to do? They used to invest in workers and the business, and now they're looting the business and putting money in their pockets. Long term, that's going to hurt the company. And workers, they aren't just employees. Through pensions and 401ks, they are also owners of stock, which means you have say. Right now, their retirement money is often used to reward the same executives who cut their job. But if workers and unions push pension funds to vote differently against abusive pay and buyback policies, they can put pressure on the system from the inside, not just from the picket line. So, all in all, what does this mean? Your retirement fund might be paying for your own layoff. Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. We got to gather all these people and do what? It takes far fewer workers than you think to get noticed because pension boards are small. They're political and legally sensitive to beneficiary pressure. Studies of shareholder activism finds that when institutional investors like union pension funds target a company over excess CEO pay, they can cut CEO comp by millions on average, even though their ownership stakes are relatively small. That's a true statistic. A dozen, few, a dozen, few dozen organized workers showing up regularly, speaking in public, and submitting a clear ask, voting against X pay package, buyback plan at Y company. It's already unusual, but it's powerful. If those workers represent a union, a local union, or an association with thousands of members, the perceived weight multiplies, even if 20 people is in the room. Those 20 people represent thousands of members. So you don't need a gaggle of people to show up. You just need a few who are representing X amount of people. That holds weight. Think about it. 5 to 10 workers showing up, telling personal layoff stories, and connecting them to specific votes. That after 10,000 people got laid off, the company spent X amount of dollars on stock buyback plans and gave more money to the CEO. But if 20 to 50 workers showed up, that would be a packed room. And it would attract a lot of attention. That's starting with 5 to 10 workers, telling their personal stories, connecting them. This can put an issue on trustees' radar. May not change policy, but it would put it on their radar. And think of all the people who are already laid off. We've got what, 1.17 million just in the last 11 months? And we're projected to lose at least 1.2 million more. That's on top of however millions are out already. What is it, about 14, 15 million people? So 20 to 50 workers, you don't have a job right now anyway, would attract a lot of attention. And if workers plus union backing, petitions, and local media were there, at that level, boards often change guidelines or voting policies to avoid ongoing conflict and bad press. They don't want that. You don't need everyone. You just need enough organized members to make trustees feel both politically and legally exposed. Remember, legally, they have to listen. They have to make a decision based on what you say. Not showing up, not going, means that everything stays the same. So then there's the second layer, which is the rules of the game. Companies follow incentives. If the system rewards layoffs, then they're just going to keep doing it. If I could line my pockets and there's no repercussions, even though it means stepping on people to get there, a lot of people are going to do it. If you can rob a bank every day and no one comes to arrest you, a lot of people are going to keep doing it, even if it's morally wrong. So right now, the system is rewarding layoffs. And that's why they're just going to keep doing it. So what changes the system? The rules of the game is labor laws. We need labor laws with teeth. That is something that you can actively work on. That's something that you can look for when it comes to voting. And do note that one vote is not going to change things, because we just did the voting situation, didn't we? And things are not getting better. So we can't depend on votes, but we can depend on laws being changed by actively pushing for it. Guardrails on financial engineering, restrictions on stock buybacks right after mass cuts, that needs to be a law. Or clawing back on executive bonuses if a company downsizes or takes public money. Those are some things that needs to be changed because that's part of the rules of the game. And remember, it is a game to these people. It's your livelihood, but it's nothing but a game to them. And real safety nets, expanding unemployment benefits. People lose their job, and the amount of money that they get may not even keep them up until they can find another job. And the time period for which someone can collect unemployment benefits is not long enough to keep one afloat until they can find another job. People have been laid off for years, still looking, and most are not going to get those jobs back. They haven't gotten those jobs back. And so we need safety nets. Now, the people at the top, they have their golden parachutes. Why don't we have a parachute? Healthcare needs to be decoupled from employment, and strong training programs don't stop layoffs, but they change the power dynamic. We do need retraining programs. However, it doesn't stop layoffs because as much as we're told to upskill, do some training and what have you, that's not the real reason why people are being laid off. When they say it's AI or they say it's cost cutting, these are just excuses that they tell the public. They don't want to look like the greedy people that they are by admitting to the real reason why they're laying thousands of people off. When workers aren't one paycheck away from disaster, they're far less easy to threaten into silence. So, right now is the time to save. Don't go shopping. Don't spend. Create a nest egg so that you don't have to live in fear of losing your job because you're standing up for yourself. And recall so many times throughout history when people walked off the job, when people went on strike, when people formed unions. That's how we got the rights that we have or had. And then union busting came along and broke that up because these people knew in advance what they planned to do. Unlike right now, people are fearful of losing their jobs and they're reluctant to protest. They fear losing the job that they might lose anyway. It doesn't help them. We can't wait until it personally affects everyone because that can take a long time and it might be too late by then. So, where does that leave you watching this video, feeling like a recession is already here because it is? Note again my last video that speaks about how the labor market is being artificially propped up. There are individual actions that matter, but they're different from what you've been sold. Stop thinking like a lone employee. Start thinking like a stakeholder. Talk to your coworkers. Compare notes on workloads, pay, and rumors. An isolated worker is vulnerable. A connected workforce can become a force to be reckoned with. Again, look at history. Those people weren't afraid. They formed unions even though the boss didn't want that. They uh, went on strike, and no one went past the picket line. People joined them when they went on strike. Imagine the power people would have if everyone walked off their job on the same day at the same time. What would those companies do? Build up options before the pink slip. Build security, such as side income streams, classes, courses, skills, and emergency savings if you can. Not because of the hustle culture is so cute. No, it's not. Side hustles, hoping to make money, that's not cute at all. People want stability. That was part of the American dream that's being destroyed. The only ones that are able to see that are at the top. They're so far above us that we can't even see them. And they're so greedy that they want to take that from us. So we don't want to do it because the hustle culture is cute, but because the system is unstable by design. It is set up this way. Use your voice when it counts. That could be supporting union drives, backing candidates who support labor and corporate accountability, or just refusing to parrot that AI is replacing you and nothing we can do narrative. The more people treat these layoffs as choices, not fate, the harder it is for executives to hide behind buzzwords. Remember that it's not AI that's replacing you. So, what actually changes the trajectory? Not just learning a new app while executives cash bigger checks. Not pretending everything is fine because the headline says that the unemployment rate is 4%. It's not 4%. It is beyond 12%. And that number is rising. Trajectories change when workers organize. When the public and investors push back, and when the laws stop rewarding predatory behavior and start protecting people who actually create the value. So, if this resonated, in the next video, let's get even more concrete. How can you and your coworkers start building leverage before the layoff email hits your box? Let me know in the comments if you want that breakdown with real steps, not just vibes. I'd like to end with the short piece that I wrote, just to keep some perspective. If these conversations help you think more clearly about where we're headed, you're welcome to stay. I
Thank you
post
for watching.
when there's something worth saying.